going to get started here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. I think we've got an interesting program for you planned today. Jody Coleman from Lancaster helped plan this event, and she's going to kind of take over here in a second. But before we start our program, I would just like to thank Bryan Stratton College for hosting us. We've been here, coming here almost every year now for the last several years, and they've always been very good to us. So I'd like to thank Ken Monaco for stepping in We were supposed to have a chocolate fountain and ice sculpture here for us today. I don't know what happened, but maybe we might have to consider going somewhere else. But Ken, can you give us a few updates on Bryan Stratton?
Yeah, I love when you throw me under the bus. So. All right, hi, good morning everybody. Thanks for coming, appreciate it. Not a lot happening. We're still going to have this facility when things open up. Just so you know, next year we're actually moving. Our classrooms are moving. We have two buildings right next to each other. We're actually going to be going into that building over there, our classroom structure, and our online's coming over here, and our system office is coming here. So we have some changes in the move. That's a newer building, so I like that, newer classrooms, everything, so that should be nice. As far as us, I just want to remind you, and I was talking to a couple of counselors already, and I don't understand why people don't take advantage of it, but a lot of schools do. I'm in a ton of schools in the south towns, and now I'm actually helping out with the north towns also. City of Buffalo, I'm staying away from it. I've been there, done that. So they have a good crew over there. So we do a lot of classroom workshops. We do not pitch our college in there. You know, at the end we'll give, you know, a couple minutes, like this is what we offer, this is what we do. You know, if you're interested in, great. If you're not, that's fine too. But we do a lot on, my two biggest ones that I do in the south towns and toward the southern tier are interview skills, getting students ready for life. A lot of people nowadays are so weak on their soft skills, a lot of students. So I'm trying to get them prepared for that. For regular job interviews, I know when I graduated from college, my first interview, I was never trained on how to interview. I got nothing, and I struggled for the first few interviews. I blew it because I didn't know how. So also a lot of colleges do interviews, and some of them are tough. Some of them are becoming like job interviews. They're really hard interviews. So I want to get these students ready for that. So all we're asking is for one period a year. I mean, I don't think that's a lot to give valuable information to students. The other one that I'm really big on is, and a lot of the economics in a bunch of schools do, is I do a credit and credit card workshop. Again, these kids, and I learned that a couple years back when my daughter went to UB. She was going for biochemistry, and they had a banquet for scholarship winners. And after that, they took kids on a tour. And we don't do it as a consortium. We pushed away from doing it even before the bigger mandates came on. But I went into the student union with her, and I was watching a ton of high school students. In their student union, they had 3 tables set up, different banks. Sign up for our credit card, get a free t-shirt. Sign up for ours, get a free whatever. And I'm watching these kids while my daughter's soaking me for other stuff in the store. I'm watching these kids going to not 1, but 2 and 3 tables, signing up for credit cards, signing up, you know, signing contracts, and they're not even reading it. They're just signing it to get that free Chotsky. And then they get in credit card trouble. The consortium, college consortium, a few years back, we were talking about how we were seeing an influx of college students, freshmen, getting in credit trouble, making late payments, skipping payments, so at 18 and 19 years of age, ruining their credit. So that's why I do that. We do some college prep stuff, so we do a variety of different things. The last thing I'm going to tell you, if anybody hasn't heard, our newest program we started just over a year ago is our PTA, Physical Therapist Assistant Program. We have just been going real slow with it to make sure everything's good, and the accreditation came in and looked at us again. But that's starting to pick up really fast, and these students are coming out with an associate's, making around $50,000. If you look at that is the biggest growing field in the country, but where the growth really is in the South. because people get old and they move down south and they start needing help. One of my friend's sons started out at $62,000 down south. So for an associate's degree, that's making really good money. Okay. So I'm going to leave my business cards up here. All right. If you want to get into the workshop, there's some seats up here. There's some up there. So if you want to get into the workshops, you can. We also do some things on campus also with the BOCES. I've been having people come in with our PTA programs and a few other things. So I'm going to leave my cards here. Feel free to take one. If this pile is the same, I'm going to get really hurt. But other than that, have a great day. Yes?
I just want to let you guys know, Ken does come in and do the interviewing skills in our school, and you do a great job with that. I mean, the kids would actually really enjoy it. They said they get good stuff from it, even talking about tips like be nice to the secretary, because the secretary may be, reporting to the boss, and just putting your cell phone away, really simple, basic stuff, but stuff that they just need to be reminded of. So
yeah.
I recommend it. We do it every minute.
Thank you. And I didn't even have to pay her for that. She'll send me a bill later. But no, and I try to keep it light. I try to keep it fun for them so they can have a little fun with it and still learn.
Can you teach our parents to be nice to the secretary?
What I recommend for the secretary, I was kidding around at the BOCES in East Aurora. We were talking about tattoos, and one of the teachers says, does anybody know what a teardrop tattoo means? And it's for somebody that was in prison and killed somebody.
We just had that conversation last
Did you?
We all had wrong ideas of what it was.
Yeah, no, that's what it really means. So I told the one secretary I was talking to, and I said, just put a teardrop over here, a fake tattoo in there. They'll leave you alone. All right, thank you very much. Have a great day.
So good morning, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jody Coleman, school counselor at Lancaster High School. And last year, it was around June, I don't know if you saw, I think it was on the listserv, an opportunity for school counselors to experience a professional development program for a class in Glasgow, Scotland. Well, Patrick Mandy and I were lucky enough to be chosen to attend this event. And it was the chance of a lifetime, both personally and professionally. The program provided a detailed comparison of education in the UK versus the US, which other than like a study abroad program, I really didn't have much experience with. So the hands-on experience took place on the campus of Glasgow Caledonian University. We met with Scottish and international students, faculty members, people in the community, and they all helped in teaching us about their educational system. Now in the evenings, we were able to learn traditional Scottish dancing, we had traditional Scottish food, we learned how to play the bagpipes. Thank you, Kim, for telling me about that. Kim McEwen went the year before. I learned how to play the bagpipes. Thank you. And then also, not to mention, we had a wee dram, as they call it, of their Scotch there. Super fun. The mission of Glasgow Caledonian University is to serve the common good. And as our world becomes more global, this is certainly something that, as educators and with our students, we'll have to work on bridging those gaps. The opportunities our students have for an international experience are incredible, and I really learned a lot about that. So we thought some knowledge on the topic would be helpful today. So we have asked our speaker of honor to be presenting. Dr. Robert Clougherty is the founding dean for the Glasgow Caledonian University of New York. It's the first international school to be granted degree granting authority by the New York State Board of Regents. He's also the CEO of Mind Abster Incorporated. He's been in higher education for over 35 years, from faculty member to vice provost. He's been published in many disciplines and in many languages. Been very busy. And he was also our professor extraordinaire in the class we took over the summer. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Robert Clougherty.
Thank you for inviting me today. I appreciate the kind introduction. But please, call me Bob. Everybody does. My kids do. My students do. The doctor is something I did, don't say how many years ago. If you like me, it's for what I do now. It doesn't matter what you call me. So, anyways, let me welcome and let me introduce you not just to GCU, but one of the strange experiences I had when I got hired into this position was how do we translate Scottish higher education and European higher education into the US? Because the biggest danger is we assume that because we speak the language of the same, that is not true. So let me begin, and I want to give you sort of a run through to help you understand how UK higher education works. My mission today is really not just to push GCU. My mission today is really to help you understand if you have students who want to go internationally and go along that line. I mean, if you look at the most recent data for US students, 80% of employers prefer students who have had an international experience. And given the current cost issues, it can actually, if a student does go international, they can reduce their cost by down to about a fourth of what they would pay if they were to go to a university in the US. And you add in there that it's not that difficult. You can fly from New York to Glasgow in less time than you could take a train from New York to go to North Carolina if you wanted to go to Duke. So it's really not that extreme an opportunity. And in this day and age, it's very easy. So that being said, what I want to do is I want to begin with a couple of things we need to understand if you have students who are beginning to look in the UK. First, there's an absolute line when we talk about community colleges versus colleges and universities. In the UK, the line is different. College means community college. Colleges only offer 2-year degrees. Universities offer 4-year and beyond. So a lot of times you'll see, reference to a specific college. So for example, in Scotland, we have Glasgow City College. That does 2-year degrees. Whereas Glasgow Caledonian University is a baccalaureate degree. The second is the difference between a course and a module. What we call a course in the UK is called a module. On the other hand, what we call a curriculum, they call a course. So what will happen is also in the UK, you don't register class by class to build up over time. You register for your entire degree, and it's assumed you're taking your whole degree. What the legal system requires there is you have to tell somebody the whole cost of their entire degree. So if a student goes online and says, I want to register, and says, okay, your course will cost £11,000. And people begin to have heart attacks. And it's, no, that's your entire degree program. The degree awarding process is different. Here in the US, you choose a school, you apply to the school, you get in, and then you select what your major is going to be. In the UK, you apply per department. So if you decide that you want to study physical therapy and occupational therapy at the same university, you submit 2 applications, 1 to each department, because you are applying to the department, you're not applying to the university or the school as we have it. And then you have different classes of degrees. So for example, an ordinary degree is a 3-year degree, whereas an honors degree is a 4-year degree. When you look at the thing, and this is, when you look at the, I never know which term to use sometimes. Am I using course? Am I using curriculum? They actually submitted file work with NICEAD before I began the job. And you can imagine they wrote in a very UK system because everything gets broken down in different ways. And so, there was a meltdown somewhere in Albany, and I spent the first 3 months of my job trying to calm people down and not get them to throw me out of the building. But what's most fascinating in the UK for undergraduate programs, there are no gen ed requirements. So for your students who say, I want to study engineering, but I don't want to go and, have to take all the gen ed, the UK does not require gen ed. Whatever your field is, you begin that day 1. As a result, for US students, our 2 most popular programs for US students coming in are, of course, computer gaming. And if you have a chance, I know the people have been on campus to see our computer gaming lab. Our computer gaming lab is just stacks of board games. And their first assignment is they have to take a board game and figure out how to program it on a computer. So, I want to take that. I just want to play the board game. It'd be nice to sort of relax for a while. The other one is what we call ethical hacking, which is computer security. Okay. What happens, again, is you pay for your entire course. Okay? So that means that if you're getting your degree in computer gaming, you pay for your entire degree program. everything is about your exam at the end. If you fail your exam, they have what's called a resit. So you don't retake the entire class, you just retake the exam. Because the whole focus is really on getting students to be self-motivated to pursue their own level of study. So it's not right for many of the students. However, the strange thing is that you can use U.S. financial aid to pay for this. We actually do have a FAFSA number that I'll give you at the end. So students who go abroad can use U.S. financial aid. Ironically, they cannot yet use it in New York, but if they go to Glasgow, they can still use it. The other term you have to be aware of is long, thin versus short, fat. Long, thin means it's 1 year modules. So instead of saying we're trimester by trimester, a long, thin will be spread out, fewer meeting times, spread out over an entire year. And they'll be required to take, for example, 10 modules over the course of the year, as opposed to 5 per semester. And then finally, the ironic thing is the way they do the quality control is you have what's called a program board. So there is a committee that determines the curriculum for every subject and for every module. So that what happens is when you have individualized what they call tutors, what we would call an adjunct, all your instructors are teaching from the same curriculum. Because all the students are also taking the same exam. Because they also have an assessment board that the group that designs the curriculum also designs the final exam at that point. And so all students are compared. So it's important to you because you're being measured within that. Okay. In terms of the assessment, there are all kinds of interesting terms. For example, because everybody's teaching the same curriculum, the same exam, the faculty member cannot be in the room when the students take the exam. Because faculty are assessed on how well their students do in terms of a pass rate. So they use what are called invigilators. External reviewers, in that whenever the faculty grade student exams, they have to be read and graded by 2 different people. So the university has to hire somebody external to go back and revalidate to make sure that the grades are accurate, to take out any sort of bias in either direction. And like I say, where it's all about the exam, the way that credit is counted in the UK is in terms of total learning time. So essentially, 10 hours of expected learning time is 1 credit. But that's why our masters, for example, are 180 credits. So in that expected learning time, that includes independent reading, because you're not always in the classroom. They don't measure credit by classroom time as we do. So a student might have 10 hours of seminar, 12 hours of lecture, 14 hours of practicum, and so it's a very different system. What's important is if you're talking to students who want to study abroad, it is much more responsibility placed upon them. Because the thinking there is, if you're going to do it, you have to be self-motivated. Because, for example, when I mentioned that exam, there's a whole bibliography. And if you don't read the book, guess what? It's not going to work out well for you on the exam. And it's not the person in the front who's teaching you who says, I understand. So it's a completely different system that places much more responsibility on them. So with the assessment boards, before that, they have what's called a mitigating circumstance board. So that if a student has an issue or a problem, for example, if there's an illness or a death in the family, there's actually a board that reviews that. So it's not like you can go to your individual professor like you can here and say, I mean, I have had generations of grandparents wiped out by students. I mean, astoundingly. I'm sure you've seen the same. They have no hesitation about killing their grandmother. I can't take I took the exam, but my grandmother died. But didn't she die last semester? Well, she just died again. My favorite one being saying, my grandmother died, my dog has cancer. Oh, and I've got a cold too. It's like, you're trying too hard. What happens with the mitigating circumstance is the student has to go and file the paperwork before the exam. So they can't come in after they see their grade and say, oh, well, I wasn't feeling good. If there's an illness or something, they fill out the paperwork ahead of time, and then what happens is the assessment board or the mitigating circumstances board goes and looks at that. Now, what an assessment board does, though, is they determine the degree awarding. So they have a whole spreadsheet of everything the student has done, and they make the determination over whether or not to award the degree. So the hard thing for US students, by the way, is it is a true bell curve. 50 is a passing grade in the UK. Okay, but rarely for a student to have a grade over a 70 is astounding. And so it requires a very different mindset to approach that many times, because everyone assumes, oh, I started with an A and I didn't do anything wrong. In this case, you know, it's being done by the outside. So what they do is they might look and say, you know, the student had a 48 on this module, but they had a 64 here. So the assessment board can actually change their grades. So your grades are never final until you have your degree. Because the grades are irrelevant, it's all about the degree itself in the end that makes a difference. And as I say here, it's the external reviewer who comes in and does that assessment. Okay, explain the credits. Oh, the one thing I didn't talk, it is very, very rare to transfer among institutions in the UK. It's virtually unheard of. What they do is they have a process known as RPL, which is Recognition of Prior Learning. Over here we call it PLA, Prior Learning Assessment. You know, if you're familiar with Empire State College, they do a lot of that. In order to get credit to transfer, you have to go through an RPL process. So you have to actually you don't just transfer and say, oh, here's my transcript. You have to go through and faculty will go and evaluate your knowledge to show that when you change institutions, you actually have that knowledge to take with you. All right, and accreditation I'm going to skip. Governance I'm going to skip. Okay, for students to go to the UK, it's a fairly simple process because they go on what's called a Tier 4 visa, which is similar to a J1 visa in the US. In that, a student going on a Tier 4 visa, unlike most students on international visas to the US, they are allowed to work when they're over there. So if they're going to school and they need to get a job, they can do so under a Tier 4 visa. And as I pointed out earlier, they can take the federal financial aid. So that's the quick crash course. Let me get into the details and the fun and more interesting stuff. So to give you a perspective, 31% of the international students in Scotland are undergraduate, or who come in internationally. So what you tend to, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. 31% of undergraduate students in the UK are international students. Okay, what makes it more fascinating is that if you take Scotland in particular, Scotland has more students per capita than any other country in the world. Because of St. Andrews, University of Glasgow and the like, huge numbers of international students tend to go to Scotland, and the fact that the population of the entire nation of Scotland is 1/4 of that of New York City, the per capita part makes a nice little adjustment to change the math on it. Of the international students, in the UK, 26% are in Scotland, 30% are in London, and roughly 15,875 students from the US last year actually decided to go to the UK. While that looks like a bigger number, it's actually only about 3.6% of it. 61% of those students are female. It's becoming increasingly popular in the US to go abroad. The last data I saw showed that there's been a 400% increase in US students going international for their degree over the past 10 years. So more and more students are seeing this as a viable option. So why do they choose the UK? Well, as I'll tell you, in the UK, we are the world's leaders, in terms of research. But I think more importantly is the fact that just the international experience. Because there tends to be more diversity on the campus, a student looking for an international experience will find a much larger international student population. The other thing is our retention and completion rates. One of our pride at GCU, since Jody had mentioned it earlier, in terms of for the common good. What they have in Scotland is a measure called an SMDI, which is the Scottish Multiple Depravities Index, which drills down to clusters of people of 720, and it measures the education available to them, the quality of the school in their neighborhood, availability of medical care, and all of that. 20% of our students come from the bottom 20%, the socioeconomic status. 40% of our students come from the bottom 40%, and of those students in the bottom 40%, we have a 95% retention rate and an 83% graduation rate. Because we focus on the degree and because we provide a number of the services to get students through, our retention rates are incredible. The other thing is our employment rates. Okay, this one says overall it's 83% to graduate on time and find work within 6 months. At GCU specifically, we have a 96% employment rate. So 6 months after graduation, 96% of our students will either be employed or they will be going on to graduate school or a postgraduate degree. And so there's much more focus on that. So here's the important detail when I get to Scotland. The reason that Scotland is such a good alternative is it makes a better match for US students. Scotland goes in a 12.4 or 12+4 system. So a Scottish student goes through 12 years of education and then they enter the university. So for example, if you see in the US, after grade 12, we're graduating the high school diploma. In Scotland, once they finish what's called their Highers, then they go on into their bachelor's degree. So there's a cleaner line. What happens in the rest of the UK, be it Northern Ireland, Wales, or England, it's 13+3. So what happens many times if a student does decide they want to go to England, they end up either having to do an extra year or a bridge program or something along that line in order to be able to complete their degree. So we all end up at the same point at the end. I don't know anybody who got their PhD at 23. That's crazy. I'm so jealous. I'm so competitive now. Just for that, I'm going back in time. All right. So in the UK, there are 300+ institutions that offer degree programs, 166 higher education institutes, which means baccalaureate institutions, and each one of them are autonomous, they're independent, and they're diverse. So for example, you have a comprehensive nature to all US schools. If you come to us in Glasgow, we have 3 schools. We have a school for business and society, or business programs. Most of it would be in arts and sciences in the US, programs like mass media are actually in that school. We have the School for Life Sciences. We're known for optometry programs, primarily for the most part, our nursing programs, our midwifery program, and that's also part of what we call the social sciences, and then engineering and built environment, which also includes most of our sciences. So we do have quite a range of things. But institutions are diverse in terms of what you can study. So if we look at undergraduate degrees, there's really 5 different degrees that are relevant to know about. First is what's called a single honors degree. And a single honors is a 4-year degree with a single major. And that can either be the next is the interdisciplinary degrees. So it'll be a broader area where a student will take a range of topics within a given focus area, sorry. Haven't had enough coffee yet this morning. And then finally, there's what's called combined and joint honors. And that's a 4-year degree, which we would essentially call a double major. Okay. As I said, in terms of their grading, a 40 is 3rd class. If you're 3rd class, that means that you might be allowed to progress. The board will determine whether you have the capacity. A 50 is a 2nd class lower, which is a passing degree or the equivalent of a C. A 60 is a B, which is a 2nd class upper, which means you're doing phenomenal. And 70 is an A, which is a 1st class. And like I say, this comes out on a bell curve. The 70s and the A's are very, very rare. So in the teaching, it's a completely different scale. However, when they look at what we call a module, looking at a module descriptor, it will also be much more broken down than our syllabus. You look at our catalog, it says 3 credits lecture. For them, the instructors have to break down how much time is assessment, how much is lecture, how much is independent, how much is meeting with tutors. So there's a great deal of interaction that goes on along that line. So the key to getting your students is what is called the UCAS. Okay? And if you just go to ucas.com, that is where students can search for programs. And it's also where they will go and actually enter their applications. And so they can search by discipline, they can search by school, they can search by location. So if they're looking for specific programs, the UCAS site is really the place for them to be able to start. What happens is they can go and select various programs, and then UCAS will actually let them on the website begin to look at what is the course, what's the university location, and then we also have what's called the NSS, which is a National Satisfaction Survey. So you can actually see the data on how satisfied students are with the program, so they can get a feel for sort of the peer review of what's going on there. We also have to report employment, so they can see the employment rate for that program. So you might be thinking, if a student is thinking, I want to study occupational therapy at Nottingham, and they see it's a 60% employment rate, or I can study it at Glasgow, where there's a 96% employment rate. Not that I'll make fun of Nottingham, but anybody. And it will actually show you the average salary 6 months after the course, because that's data we have to collect. So you might look, and say, oh, well, they have a lower, a very high employment rate. But if you look at what the salaries are, that might tell a completely different story. So all of this is required consumer information in the UK, and it's available to a student as they're beginning to search and go through. So when they get down, go for admissions, UCAS is everything. And UCAS is very simple, it's just very different. And so what I want to do is really focus and help you get through on that program. So there's really 3 ways that you can get to a UK institution. One is the Common App. There are some UK institutions that are on the Common App if the students want to do that. UCAS, I'm going to talk about, and then I can also apply directly to an institution. I would love it if your students wanted to go to Europe and decided to apply directly to GCU as a higher ed professional. I shouldn't say that, because in their best interest is to go to the UCAS. Because the UCAS is a European version of the Common App, and once they pay, they can apply to up to 5 schools. And the cost is roughly $30. So if you consider what students normally pay for exchange rates, if one of your students says, I want to go to Europe or the UK, get them on the UCAS. Spend the $30, then you have 4 schools and you have much more selectivity as you go. So, and by the way, it's I think there's about only about 25 UK institutions that that will take the Common App, so you really want to use the UCAS. So for the UCAS application, the things that they're going to need for a UK university are, first of all, obviously the high school diploma, but it will also help if they have any kind of advanced coursework. So an AP will help, IB helps, dual enrollment classes, because they're really looking for potential. Because the other thing is that you actually have the faculty who are making the decisions because they're applying to the program. So it's not the sort of formula driven. Most of them will take ACT, SATs, and or SAT subject tests. If it's a very specific program, this performance-based will be auditions or portfolio. Anyone care to guess the most selective school in the world?
Oxford.
What's that?
Oxford?
The Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. They accept 1 out of every 1,800 applications. I was talking to my counterpart there at RCS, and I said, my kids are getting to childbearing age. How would I get my child in here? He said, start at about 4 to prepare them. I regularly get invited over there. I went to the opera there, and I mean, those kids are as talented as anything you'd see at the Met. I mean, it's just astounding. The other thing to know, some do interviews, but that is very, very rare. Your Oxford and your Cambridges sometimes require interviews, most won't. And some will have entrance tests. If there's an entrance test, that's usually in the medical field. Because the other thing to remember is that disciplines that we consider to be postgraduate, such as medicine and law, are actually undergraduate programs in the UK. Okay. So when they come to the UCAS, they can actually go and they select 5 different schools, and the cost is £23 for 5. If they apply for one school, they're paying £12. So right now, the £23 says 30 approximately. It's a little bit less than that with the exchange rate. So it's very easy to do, it's very cheap. Okay, here's when they apply. So starting on the 1st of September is when they can begin, the system can begin to accept applications. Okay, if they want to go into medicine, veterinary, dentistry, or Oxford or Cambridge, the deadline is October 15th. Everybody else, it's January 15th for what's called equal consideration deadline. What the equal consideration deadline is the equal consideration deadline means that they will still consider you, but they look at the whole pool starting on January 15th, so that's what you want to aim for. March 24th for art and design programs, and June 30th is when the regular cycle closes. After June 30th, it goes into what is called clearing, and clearing is the other great advantage of UCAS. So if a student goes and they select their 5 schools and they get into none of them, what the system does after June 30th, it matches up their credentials with other schools. So they will begin to get other schools who they didn't even apply for, who they would be accepted at. So in addition to those 5, it opens them up to everybody else. So there's always a safety net. If you want to go to university, there is somebody, if you can't find them, they will find you. And so it gives them a great advantage. So the student who really wants to go and doesn't get into the programs they want, then have the opportunity to do it. And we probably pull about 5 to 10% of our students out of clearing at the end. I mean, it's a very common practice. Because a lot of times students' expectations of where they think that, they might think they're going to Oxford or Cambridge or St. Andrews, but they end up somewhere else. And so what happens is we say, okay, we're looking for students in this band, and they'll give us the students who meet that profile in the clearing, and then we as a university reach out to those students and say, we have a spot for you. If you're interested in coming, you can come in at that point in time. I think that's a cool option. Drives our admissions people insane, but that's their problem. Okay, in your 5 courses, you have 3 target schools and 2 safety schools. Okay, the expectation is if you get into one of your target schools, you will go there. A safety school is a secondary option. It's much easier to say no. That's more by tradition than by rule. Okay. The other thing that helps you when you're going to in the UCAS, you can also see what their expectations are for admission. And so that way, they can say, we want this grade point level, we want this much credit, we want this much background as they go. Okay. The most important part of the application where US students have trouble is in the essay. In your UCAS application, it is all about your essay. But because there's only one essay and you're applying to 5 places, you need to make sure you target it well. Okay? The essay itself is 4,000 characters, 47 lines, including spaces and blank lines, 1 statement. So if a student says, I want to apply for nuclear engineering and oil painting, it's going to be tough to do because it's much more of an expectation. The student is going to be much more focused in terms of what they're trying to do. Now, unlike us, where, let's face it, having gone through the process many times myself, having had 3 children that I'm going through, having 2 who are still in law school, and a 25-year-old who's going to figure out what he's going to do with his life in the next 7 to 10 years, he promises me. I'll let you know when I have the answer. I offered him free degree at GCU, Look, you take my apartment, I'm an employee, so you go for free. Admissions offered you a job, and, you can take your finance. What better deal to hang on your up for a year? Yeah, I'll think about it. Okay. Sometimes you understand why some animals eat their young. Yeah. Well, you guys met Patrick. Yeah. Okay. The key is that with our applications, we always tend to take an approach of you write your admissions essay to make sure you don't get rejected. Theirs is the other way around. It has to focus on you, be very specific, and you have to sell yourself. And it has to be very personalized. Did you ever see that, what was that great movie, How I Got Into College? Where this kid's desperate to get into this one school, so his parents are hiring SAT tutors, and they say, oh, you need special events, so he tries, professional wrestling and goes through all these sort of extreme things. Here, it's who are you and what can you do, and how do you get that focus? Okay, so what they're looking for in the personal statement, and I have this sort of arranged, the most important thing is your interest and passion for the course. If you want to study physical therapy, your statement better say, I want to be a physical therapist because. Okay, how does that specific desire relate to you? And how does your life experience connect to it? Based upon that as your center point, the other 4 areas you want to address are what are your skills and achievements? What is your relevant work experience, if you've had anything? The most important thing for students, yeah, I sound like the movie now, any sort of volunteerism always carries a great deal of weight. Okay? What are your future plans? Yeah, I'm going to drop out of school and join a rock band. Yeah, I was at a wedding one time and somebody came up all excited. They said, you inspired me in life. I said, really? They said, yeah. After your class, I dropped out of college. My band and I decided to go on tour. And this is my mom. Mom didn't look real happy with me. Nothing makes you feel better than that warm feeling when a student goes up and says, you're the reason I dropped out of college. And then finally, your hobbies and interests. What they're looking for is a holistic, well-developed person. Do your hobbies and interests fit with that? Okay. So, again, the questions that I want to answer is, first of all, why are they applying for this? That's the real issue. So, one of the dangers I've had students throughout the years, oh, I'm majoring in this because there's jobs. I'm majoring in this because of money. If you want to be rejected, feel free to put it in this application. Here, they want to know that you're passionate about what you want to do. Second, why does the subject interest you? It needs to be something you're interested in. You have to have a sort of learning passion behind it. Why do you think you're suitable for this program? They have lots of choices, and the universities can be very selective. Why is what you're studying now relevant to what you're doing? The smartest thing a student can do in this statement is talk about a class that they're taking in high school and why that interests them and how that drives them to what they're doing. That is really an essential part of that statement. And then, have you undertaken any interest? That's the one that closes the deal. If you say I'm interested in physical therapy and I've been volunteering at a nursing home helping with patients, slam dunk. So they really want to see how all of that fits together, that you as a person are passionate about wanting to study this. Because remember, this is a program where people are very much given independent responsibility. And let's face it, if you're not interested in this subject, it's, well, you know how hard it is to read a book you're not interested in? Forget it. It's tough to pass a course if you don't have a passion to study it. All right. For the high school reference, the 4 things that they're looking for from you, because they will ask you as their counselor to write a recommendation, are first of all, the credibility of the student's application. Is what this student says credible? Okay. They say they want to be nice people, and you happen to know for a fact that, they like pulling the wings off of flies. Second, because they don't know U.S. schools, they'll want to know the school profile. Tell them about your school so they have an understanding of how to validate that. Third is contextualize the student's curriculum. So in other words, if a student, is interested in microbiology, and they haven't had biochemistry. That's the point in, you know, our school is a small district. We aren't able to offer biochemistry, so the student wasn't able to take it. I know they would have taken more. But finally, number 4 is very important, is extenuating circumstances. In the UK, it's very important about creating opportunities. So if there are particular hardships to their student or their family, it is not only legal, it is encouraged to put that in there. So if you know, for example, you know, a parent has lost a job or something like that, if there's some particular challenge the students come in, the fact the student has overcome it increases the value of their application. But more importantly, they're also looking at you. They want to validate the fact that you know your students and their families, and that becomes an important detail. So you want to make sure when you're writing that your reference for the student to ensure that those 4 things are in there, so they really have a context of that as well as your relationship. And then what is it? The counselors in Scotland, is it 4 times the load they carry? Yeah.
They do
When you-
they really do, they do a lot of teaching. Like they're in their
Yeah.
classroom a lot more than I think than us counselors in the
Yeah.
United States.
So because their counselors carry a heavier load, don't ever make a reference saying, I have too many students to know them well. You know, in that situation, that's an absolute kiss of death. You know, if you're writing the reference, you know them, you love them, they're wonderful, you had dinner last night, and they, you know, during dessert, you pointed out that broccoli caught in their teeth. I don't care. Whatever it is that shows that relationship that you have with that student that validates them as an individual, increases the value of their application. Okay. In the decision making, okay, what happens is from the institution will decide whether in either an unconditional or conditional unsuccessful. All right. What unconditional means is unconditional means you're accepted, you're set, you can start in September. Conditional means that they will send you a list of you have to do these things and then you're accepted. For most undergraduate students, you have to successfully graduate from high school, passing everything in your last term. Those are the conditions. Unsuccessful means no, you know, you're not coming to this school. Okay. Once they get that, they have to make a decision on their acceptance. And they can either go with firm or insurance. Firm means that they accept that school, they're going to go there, they plan on enroll. Insurance means they want to tentatively accept a spot and they're still making a decision. But there's also a cutoff date for insurance. After a certain point, they lose that seat by doing that. And then anything else, they have to decline. Okay. I'm going to skip that. Why Scotland? Scotland, as you know, is one of 4 countries that make up the UK. Population that knows 5.1 million. It has its own parliament and education system. Scotland is the only part of the UK that still gives free education. The Scottish government absolutely believes in it. For undergraduate degrees, Scottish students pay 0. Yeah, amazing, isn't it? So, if you look at it, this is the entirety of the universities available in Scotland. We're up at the University of the Highlands and the Islands, which is actually really a cool university. I met their president when they first opened. He's the only president I know of who was convicted of a felony. What's that?
You said fun fact.
Fun fact, yeah. What happens is they teach in Gaelic, and what happened was he tried to get the government to change the signs for the campus. They wrote them all in English, and he thought that was offensive. So he wanted to change, including those big highway signs of this exit. So he made them on plywood in Gaelic and used marine glue and damaged over $100,000 of government property because it destroyed the signs he attached it to. So he wasn't given a penalty, but he was convicted of a felony. I think, hey, our president's a convicted felon. I'm reserving any comment. That could go in the wrong direction. University of Stirling, of course, University of Glasgow, GCU, Glasgow School of Art, the Royal Conservatoire I mentioned, Strathclyde, and then you have Edinburgh, Aberdeen, and Aberdeen. So there's a number of schools around the country. What's important is that if you look at, across the belt, which is Glasgow and Edinburgh, you begin to notice that the majority of schools are actually in those two cities, and they're very much the sort of college cities as you would expect. Right now, the important thing to know is that we have 230,000 students in Scotland, and we have 38,455 staff. That includes faculty. So, I'll skip that part. You already heard about that. I'll leave the room and let Jody tell you about what happened. Like this? Any idea where it is? What's that? Isle of Paris. It's tough to believe that's Scotland. It looks like such an exotic beach. You have to think about it along that line. And I'm running out of time, so I won't tell you the interesting stuff about Harris Tweed. I learned all kinds of things.
Whiskey?
What's that?
Lots of whiskey?
No Harris Tweed?
Oh.
Harris Tweed is a cottage industry. In other words, there's no Harris Tweed factory.
Oh.
It's all individual weavers. And Harris, the company just goes around and buys from individual weavers to pull it all together. But with Glasgow, we have the largest student population in Scotland because of the number of universities we have. Rough guys call us the friendliest city in the world. They clearly take different taxis than I do. But it has excellent transport links. You can get from Glasgow to anywhere. UNESCO recognizes the city of music. You name any band, they have played there. And there's always something going on. Second biggest in shopping. We're called the UK sports capital. And we're the most attractive destination for international job seekers. And the Chamber of Commerce doesn't pay me to say that. But it's true. I love Glasgow. It's a fun city. I love Buffalo too. There's a comparator there. Trust me. Okay. So to tell you about GCU, as Jody mentioned, we are the first UK university, the first international university in New York. 96% of our students go on to further study. We're second in the UK for international student satisfaction, behind St. Andrews. And then we have 17,000 students from 100 countries. We contribute £444 million to the Scottish economy, and 55% of our undergraduate programs offer work placement opportunities. We have one of the best career services departments around, and well over half of our programs actually have legitimate work experience. And so in that way, we are able to offer, students do have an inside track to get employment when they graduate. So this is our global presence, and we're in some strange places. And I'll explain why in just a second. But you normally see people going to Abu Dhabi because of all the money. Instead, we're in Oman. You see people going to Shanghai because China has so much money. We're in Dakar in Bangladesh. You never see anybody. We're in both South Africa and Mauritius. We're in London, we're in Glasgow, and we're in New York. And the reason why is this man, our Chancellor, Muhammad Yunus. I work at GCU because of Muhammad Yunus. It's nice, having worked at other institutions in certain states I may be standing in public education, to work for a Nobel laureate is just an awesome opportunity. Dr. Yunus got the Nobel laureate for inventing the Grameen Bank and for the whole idea of microcredit as a scheme to end poverty. He's one of the top people in the world. Trying to get a phone call with him is virtually impossible. My hope to catch him is when he's in town to speak at the UN. Dr. Yunus is committed to really making the world a better place. If you know the titles of his books, like The End of Poverty and the like, that's our mission. So everything, he also has what he believes in social business. And social business is you measure everything by how much impact it makes in making the world a better place. For our program that we do in the summer, that Jody and Belinda, Kim and Patrick have been on, I can't just say this is how it works out financially. I have to tell how I'm making the world a better place. Everything we do has to have a social good. One of the models of Grameen Bank, the way Grameen worked is with Dr. Yunus, who's from Bangladesh, did his PhD in the US and went back. He suddenly realized that when he was looking around and beginning to look at some of the severe poverty in Bangladesh, with a small loan to help people start their own businesses, he could bring people out of poverty. With the Grameen Bank, the average loan is $20. And what it does is it loans to women. And we tend to be in a belief in the West that you can't trust poor people with money. He has a higher repayment rate than Chase, Citibank, or any major US bank. But what's interesting is that when your loan is outstanding, you have to go through education courses to help you get started. You have to sign a commitment saying that you're going to keep your children in school. You have to make a commitment to providing appropriate nourishment level for your children. So it becomes a way of actually using this to inspire people to develop their own businesses, and the whole development continues. What happened in Bangladesh is all of a sudden we had this whole generation of high school kids who were getting ready to graduate high school, and the question is, where do you go for university in Bangladesh? Other than the University of Dakar, there's nothing else. So what we did, and this is a long story I know, but it sort of situates us as a college what we did. There was a huge need for midwifery in Bangladesh. And in Glasgow, midwifery is our largest PhD program. So what we did was we took our PhD students and our faculty and we cycled them through Dakar, and we created the Grooming School for Nursing. So we initially began teaching it, and then we developed graduate programs to where they can have their own faculty and they're teaching it. And in our social business model, as of next year, they're completely independent, have nothing to do with GCU. They'll be financially viable, they'll be sustainable, they'll be able to move forward on their own. And that's the model that we work on. We're in Oman, we have the School for Engineering and Built Environment, because we realized there were no opportunities for women to study engineering in the Middle East. We are now the largest provider of degrees to women in the entire Middle East. So we're very much committed to how do we do it. We're in South Africa, because after apartheid, it's nice to say we're going to give everybody equal opportunity, but what about equal education? So we opened up a postgraduate MBA program in conjunction with the Transnet Railroad to provide that opportunity. Mauritius is the African Leadership Council. London is the British School of Fashion, and in New York we have the Fair Fashion Center. You're looking at me strange. 85% of the supply chain in fashion is women. And when you begin to look in countries like Bangladesh and the factories, what sort of conditions are there? And you begin to realize that fashion is the second largest polluter behind oil and gas. And if you've ever lived downstream from a fabric dyeing plant, take a look at what that water looks like. 25% of world water usage goes just into the fashion industry. If you look at the ROC is the first sea to go completely dry. And the reason is Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan dammed the rivers to irrigate cotton fields, because now they can sell the cotton to the fashion companies to make the money. And I mean, you begin to look around and look at these conditions, you have to ask that question, how to make, and so Dr. Yunus called the 30 top fashion CEOs worth about $256 billion in business, sat them down on New York campus and said, what are you going to do to make it better? And so now we have a system, and that is our entire focus, is really, we do fair fashion, now we're doing fair finance. How do you use an industry to do good? Still make a profit, because nobody says that I'm going to make a business to lose, but to make it real, to operate legitimately for better practice. And he is a great inspiration and a brilliant man, and I can't say highly. I know, I sound like I come from a cult, but. Okay, we are the University for the Common Good, as we've said. And I'll talk about putting stuff out, because I know I'm running short on time. This is what our survey, in terms of what our employers like about our students. Then we develop their skills in entrepreneurial, real-world problem solving, global learning, etc. These are our 3 schools. So the Glasgow School for Business and Society is broken up into 8 departments. And those are accountancy, bank and finance, business and management. I know you can read, I'll get the materials out to you rather than reading it to you. Over here with the logos are all the companies that we have partnerships with and have placed students with during their employment. School for Health and Life Sciences, you see psychology, biological and biomedical sciences, diabetes care, etc. Our faculty is now working with the Office of Professions at NICEAD in terms of making sure that licensure for the occupational therapy program, that the Scottish license will transfer back to New York. But students can get over there and focus in any one of those areas. We're actually in the world, one of our world leading areas now is actually in prosthetics, because we've got an engineering faculty member who's specialized in VR to sit down with our health faculty and we're now using virtual reality to actually design customized prosthetics for individuals. So they can essentially use the virtual reality to design their own prosthetic, as opposed to, here it is. Engineering and built environment is chemical and forensic. Computer games, as you can imagine, tend to be very popular. Computer networking, and it's also another one. We do environmental, oil and gas. And as of, it's not official by the Senate, but the APC yesterday passed one in fire management, fire engineering as well. London I'll skip because that's primarily graduate school. We are the world, in terms of world leading research. For research in the UK, we're in the top 20. We're also, if you look at the THES rankings, we're in the top 150 universities in the world. So you might not have heard of us, but we're there. Okay, so for your students, the average yearly cost for them to study in Glasgow is $11,500. Okay, that's the entire living expense. When we were looking for an apartment, my wife said, I found a place, but it says, we're used to Manhattan rents. And so she said, I found a place, but I think it's in the slums. They said it was nice, but it's 700 pounds. That's like $1,000 a month. And it's like, oh God, that's horrible. It's like, it's chandeliers, wooden floors, the place is a mansion. And so it's very cheap to live in Glasgow. And so, as I said, the average yearly cost or estimate is $11,500. That's average. You can go cheaper if you need to. The tuition cost is $14,500. As somebody who has 2 children in law school and I'm paying $52,000 each year, that's why the young one, you're going to Scotland. I just see, TSA hang up to me as I'm beating one of the like, get out of the place! No, that's not $52,000 a year. Your brother, your sister ate it all. Yes, you're the youngest. No, I don't love you as much as I love them. This is our FAFSA number. As I say, they use the standard FAFSA to be able to apply their financial aid. And if they want to know more, we do have a special section on our website for U.S. federal loans. And at that point, rather than saying any questions, I'll give you my contact information because, excuse me, my allergies, I was trying to beat them up. Here's my phone number. I do have my card, and if you would be so kind, the 2 things I want to do is, Jody had mentioned I'm the CEO of MindApster, and we've got a software called Synteg, which we use for our summer courses, and everyone here. Patrick talked me over dinner last night, talked me into opening it up to you, so that way you can get in there, have access to all of this, be part of the discussions, and have that. We still don't have final budgetary approval, but it is our intent to offer our program again next summer, and you've got 4 people here who've been to the program, all that testified. And if you would be so kind as to give me your information, I have a nice little form here. Just give me your name and email. I would appreciate that. So thank you very much, and I'll stay and answer questions individually, but before I do that, I need to check with my HR department. Not me, and another employee. So, sorry, HR said the whole program is wrong.
Bob, do you want us to pass that around?
Yeah, if you want to pass that around, that'd be the easiest thing, and just hit submit.
So that'll give
I've
us-
already got them, they don't need to.
Yeah, we're in.
Are we in already?
Yeah.
We're in like one. Sure.
Wasn't he incredible?
Thank you very much.
If everybody has questions about the program, feel free to ask us. It was exceptional, and I can't say enough about it. I almost wanted to wear the kilt today. Eric told me to wear the top. So.
Is there any way that we can get a copy of the PowerPoint, or that could be sent?
Yep, and that's what I said, once you put it in here, what I'll do is I'll put you into our software,
Okay.
and everything's inside there,
Okay.
plus more. And my cards are up here as well.
Bob, can you explain to them how the Synteg will work and what we can participate in?
Sure, I'll tell you what, once that gets around,
Okay,
give me 5 minutes to check on an issue, I apologize.
okay.
I have like work as a startup university. I'm the CIO. I'm the head of HR. And we're on a limited time because they don't change clocks at the same time. So I only have a 3-hour overlap
11:30.
with Glasgow. So yep, as soon as we do that, I'll pull it right up and show everybody.
All right, thank you.
And did Jody?
business?
Yeah, Tracy, did you want to say something?
I did. I know a lot of schools use different folders for when students enter, so some of this might be through your registrar, but we're looking to see what permanent folders people are using. So if anybody has any, this is our standard folder, which if you have anything different, I'm interested to know what your district is using. Our administration would like to update this a little bit, and so we're looking for ideas of good examples. So if you let me know, that'd be great.
So could we maybe scan it and then upload it, or how would?
Yeah, you can scan it and upload it, that would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm at Pioneer.
Are you talking about a cumulative?
A cumulative folder, exactly. The student's permanent folder.
We have everything in the computer, so we just use regular manila folders.
And that's what I've heard a lot today, is actually that people are just really, if they have these, they're leaving them blank or, you know, but I didn't know if anybody had anything. Otherwise, I'll go back and share that. So.
Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about? Okay, real quick, actually, before we start, I know there's a couple of new members here today. So we have Sarah Newdeck, who's at East Aurora, and she's been to, I think, our meetings before, but now she is at East Aurora as a permanent member. And Olivia Kaisik, who is for Erie to Boces at the Carrier CTE Center. So she's been around 2 weeks. Is there anybody else new here that I don't know? No? Oh, back there. What's your name?
I'm Elena Chan. I'm at Mount Mercy Academy.
Okay, great. Welcome. Right, so we have some people between retirements and job changes and stuff like that, so we'll try to keep track of any new members. If you haven't paid your dues yet, please see Dave. I think we have a lot, but we still need a lot more. Our website the usage has gone up, so hopefully you're checking out our new website. Mark is not here today to give the numbers, but the website is up. We are getting, I think there's a couple final details. It's been a little struggle this year. We're getting some of our presenters, but the schedule for the year is going to be coming out. The next meeting actually should be fun. It is going to be, if you want to write it down, and we should have this up on our website soon. It's going to be December 15th, which is a Friday, of course, but we're going to do it in the afternoon, and it's going to be down at the Curtis Hotel. Kelly Bourdine is setting it up for us, and she's with Erie to Boces now. So it's going to be talking about development downtown and the hospitality and tourism, which I think will be fun there. And then we are planning on staying afterwards. They have a couple places we can hang out there, the rooftop bar, or they have a rotating bar downstairs. And the organization is going to buy some appetizers, so it'll be kind of our unofficial professional development / maybe holiday get together afterwards. So everyone is welcome to attend. We'd love to see a big turnout for that. A couple of things upcoming as well. If you want to make note for our February meeting is February 9th. And we're actually going to be turning it into an all-day development, which is something new. I am working with Joe Lucenti at Akron to do it's a joint meeting with the principals meeting, and we're going to be doing cell phone safety and have somebody from the exploited children doing the presentation. But we were approached from the NFIDA, which is the auto tech guys, and they really want to do it. They wanted something that day, but because we already had the morning planned, we're going to turn that into an afternoon. So I'm actually meeting with Tom Herman right after Thanksgiving, and we're going to plan it. Pat brought the idea up as well. They're going to set us up in the afternoon with a room at the Hyatt to do a presentation, and then they're going to give us VIP passes to the auto show, which is why they really wanted to do it that day. But the auto industry is definitely making a big push. I know they've been in a bunch of the schools, and they're really looking for people for employment. They have a lot of great opportunities there. And just like a lot of the other industries, they're really hurting for skilled workers. So they're making a push toward it. So I think that'll be another thing that we can learn some stuff and should be kind of fun too. And then after the survey was done that Mark put out on the website or through the emails about the college visit, I think the overwhelming option, maybe you guys checked, I think was Gannon and Edinburgh. We had a couple of different choices for schools.
A couple of them were a little further away and might have included an overnight, but of the people that filled out the survey, thank you. I think Gannon and Edinburgh, right? Is that the big choice?
Yes.
So that won the most. So I think that's what we're doing. And Dave Betten and Anne-Marie Cervoni are going to be planning that, which they normally do for the college visit. We do have the clothing back there with our new logo on it, so there's forms to fill out. I have a couple of shirts and pullovers there just for size reference if you guys want. Just let you know, they do run a little bit small, so I would definitely recommend going up a size. We have about 15 people that ordered already. For those of you, the gray was on a little bit of back order, so we got a little bit hung up, but they should be in. I will definitely have them by next meeting, but if I get them, I should get them before that. I could try to get them to your district somehow. If not, I'll definitely bring them to the next meeting if you order them. Whoever ordered the black, I contacted individually, and those are not going to be available till January. So the black is on no back order. So some people took color, some people said, that's fine, I'm in no hurry. So we'll get those out. But anybody, we could be putting another order in soon, so if you want to take a look back there, let me know. And we also have the Facebook page, which is obviously closed. You have to apply to it, and we, as the administrators, accept it. But we haven't gotten much use out of that, but I'd like to see that get used a little bit more, just kind of for the more fun stuff for our council organization or anything more unofficial that wouldn't be on our website. But I think the website's doing well. Hopefully you guys have checked it out. If anybody has any login problems, please let Mark know. He's definitely willing to call everybody independently to see if they can help. Does anybody have anything else? Or, yeah.
Real quick, I know some of you guys pay your dues on the website with PayPal. So if you do that, it's not a problem, but when you go in there and do that, make sure you're aware you've got two options. One is gonna sign you up for a reoccurring payment. So say you pay your bills on November 4th of this year, and it's set for recurring payment. That means next year on November 4th, it's gonna take the $10 out of you again. By that time, you're probably gonna completely forget about it. So if you do that with PayPal, again, it's not a problem. It goes into our bank account. But just be aware that a lot of people aren't paying attention to the single payment or recurring payment. So just be aware that if you click recurring, the next year, whatever date you made that payment, it'll automatically take it out of your account or your credit card or whatnot. So we've had a few people that didn't realize that, and all the PayPal notifications go to me. So I get an email every time you guys pay, and what I do is I forward it on to our treasurer, just so he can have an accounting of it. So.
Anybody have anything else? All right, so the iPad's going out for people to sign up, and if you want to talk for a couple of minutes, go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. So I know that it's coming around, but I'll go ahead and show you on my phone. So Synteg, and I'll show you how to get off the App Store in just a second. When you click on it, and by the way, I was trying to get into the guidance counselor instance. I can't get on the wireless here on my laptop. So when you come in, you'll get to your home page, and this is a corporate consulting instance. You'll see there's two things over here in the home page. You'll have linkages and you'll have folders. Your folders are where you'll have your content. And so inside of that, you'll see whatever content is inside there. It might be PowerPoints, PDFs, documents, website links along that line. Up here, if you have a question, the turquoise question mark is where you can either put in questions or answer questions. The yellow heart means you're following, so if new content is added, it will send you a message. I'm in instructor mode, so ignore the last two. What makes us unique are the two green ones. Those are what are called the linkages. And I'm actually going to back out and go directly to the linkage from over here. For the linkage, you'll see questions and answers. Take this one, something similar. You'll see an explanation of it. Then you'll see positions, and you can go ahead and add your own in there. Let me go to one. I don't think there's anything in here I haven't added. Give me 1 second. So when you go to add a linkage, gives you a place to put in your text. Or you can also take a photo, use your camera roll, pull something from Dropbox or Google Docs if you want to along that line. Then when you get to other people's responses, you can either support, challenge, or question to keep the discussion going. So remember those two things and you're good. Everything else you can sort of learn by playing around. For example, there is a dashboard if you're wondering how you're doing. Clearly, I'm not doing enough. The test is, okay? Go easy on me. And if you want to share your work, it collects everything so you can also do a portfolio. And when you export your portfolio, want to share it with somebody, your portfolio is in 3 tabs. You have a quantitative tab. The qualitative tab is what you've chosen to show for assets. And then, again, it's a small one, but you get a data visualization of the work that you've done. Oops, sorry. And the fun part is there's also a leaderboard, so you can actually go and see how well you're doing versus others, and you can follow and unfollow other people. And you can also get their contact information, their LinkedIn or their email. So what I will do is I'll send you an invitation. We have one specifically for our summer program. Like I say, I couldn't get into that one. I have to change. I've got, as you can imagine, as CEO, I'm in every single instance, so I have to look up my passwords and I can't get on there. But you can find us very easy if you go to the App Store. The networks out here don't like me. There we are. Just put in Synteg, and you'll find us there. And since I'm doing my promos, I may as well come up here. If you're interested in the Synteg and want to play with it, we can certainly talk about it, because we do have, if it ever finishes loading. From our page on mindapps.com, you can get directly to our EdTech page. Which is on resource and integrated learning, interdisciplinary education, how to win a free instance, like to learn more, and about the system. So, simple enough? It's an app. It's simple. So, and like I say, my cards are here, and feel free to contact me at any time, and I'll be contacting you since we have the Gecko form going around. Thank you again for inviting me, and thank you for Brian and Stratton for having me here, and Patrick, thank you for all you've done to bring me out here. And Jody and Kim went running away, so thank you to Linda for making it also.
Does anyone have any last minute questions or?
I just wanted to throw out, so Kim and I went 2 years ago, so we were kind of one of the first groups to go through the Scotland process, and we put together a really nice presentation. So maybe I can have Kim kind of upload the presentation. I know Dr. Flaherty, you've really given us a lot of information on the U.S. versus the UK, but Kim and I have a presentation that's really about the school counseling program that Chief Authorities put together. And so if you have more questions about that, it's a presentation that can answer some of that. So maybe I'll try to upload that.
You can upload it.
And it basically talks about like what we did every day, what we did every evening, and what the benefits are to us as school counselors. I'm in the middle school, so I know a lot of you guys probably don't recognize me or know me. I do recognize many of you, but but because I don't come to these meetings often, just because I'm in middle school, but maybe we can have that presentation uploaded. We did present it to the middle school counselors last year, and it basically told you a little bit more. I would highly recommend the program. I know that you guys have probably had a fabulous time. Kim and I learned a lot. It was really a life-changing event for us, and I think one of the things, when you showed the picture of all the kids on the steps to GCU, I turned to Kim and I would really like my son, he's almost 15, and I told Kim, like, I'm so passionate about the program and I feel so comfortable about sending any student, but I would send my own son to the program. So I think like when he's like more like in terms of 11th grade, I'll definitely be calling you guys and but Westfield family's going to be going on over to Scotland to GCU and shove Ethan into the engineering program. And that's not only what I recommended to my kids, to my students, but I would send my own children to it. So it's a
The
beautiful
community as a whole
experience.
is so incredibly welcoming. I couldn't get over that. They were so friendly and so kind and helpful and were willing to educate us on what it was like to live in their community and to experience their educational system. They were phenomenal. Can't do that.
I think the highlight of the program is we have the Scottish school counselors come in and give you a chance to sort of,
So fun.
benchmark how your profession differs over there.
Is there a limit on how many counselors can go? Like how many are in the program?
The program is capped at 20, and the scholarships the full scholarships are capped at 10. We also have incredible facilities. One of our big programs now is forensic science, because every kid watches CSI and wants to go and study that. We got these new crime victim mannequins that are so realistic that when the cleaning staff went in at night and looked in there, set up for a class the next morning, they called the police. We had detectives, everything else. They thought people had been, some massacre had occurred in one of the classrooms.
And one neat thing is the city of Glasgow, I wasn't sure what to expect, but they are the most friendly people. And I can tell you, we walked around that entire city for hours upon hours every night, and we never once felt unsafe or threatened in any way. So I think that's big when you consider that maybe you're sending your child over there, or one of your parents is thinking of sending their kid over there. I felt safer over there than I do over here. So it was a great experience. And if you guys, if they offer it again and you're lucky enough to get selected to go, it'll be an experience of a lifetime, but you'll also be exhausted because you're going to spend the good part of your day actually in class. And I don't know if you're going to use Syntax next year. A lot of your homework and assignments are going to be on the app, which you could do on your phone or a tablet. But after class, you're going to be hopefully out in the community doing things probably until midnight, 1 o'clock, which is what we did. So when we got back, we slept for a week because we were so exhausted.
Plus the 5-hour time change.
Right, plus the time change. So.
How long is it?
1 week.
A week.
We stayed longer. We were like, we're going to Scotland.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're staying longer. Because we toured the country.
And you won the Quake this year.
The
Quake.
Yeah.
There's a special type of whiskey drinking glass with a Quake. It comes out in the gamification system. Highest points person wins the Quake, and Patrick won the Quake, so he went home with the merch this year. And then you got one of them last year, didn't you?
Yes, I got something because my Syntax wasn't working most of the whole time. I couldn't get on it right through my phone.
For determination.
Yes. But you gotta try the haggis, right? Did you guys eat the haggis?
Several times.
I didn't want to eat it, but I was forced to do it.
You have to. You're going to be there. You have to.
So
Did you like it?
it wasn't bad actually.
I did. What is it? It's minced meat and it is cooked in sheep stuff, but it's
It's sow's face. Sow's face.
sour face.
They use the muscle of the pig's face.
But they cook it in a sheep stuff.
Yeah.
They don't serve it to you in sheep stuff. It looks like minced meat. With mashed potatoes, they call them tatties. Mashed potatoes, they call them tatties.
But yeah, we'll all hang out here for a little while if you guys have questions. If not, thank you very much for coming. Have a great weekend.
project.
Thank you all for coming.